Is Blair White still like your point of inspiration? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not asking a gotcha question, just so you know. Don't worry.
I think she's really, I think politics aside, I really like Blair. And
Yeah.
I think she probably doesn't really like me now after what happened on Twitter.
Why did
But
you
I do really like her
did you
as a
beef with
person.
Blair White?
What was that?
Did you beef with Blair White? Is that why she wouldn't like you?
Oh, you didn't know about that? Oh, yeah. So,
Oh no, I didn't. What
it,
happened?
so
Oh
our
god.
first interaction was when I was like, I think like 15 or 16, and I made a YouTube video about there only being two genders. And I I tagged Blair. I didn't tag Blair, but I sent her a DM being like, "Hey, you inspired me to make this video. I love your content." And she responded like, I think she just said something nice and supportive. I forgot what it was.
Okay.
And then a few years later, when my TikToks blew up, we kind of got in beef because she was making fun of Dylan Mulvaney. And at the
Oh,
time, I was very leftist, and I felt bad for Dylan because so many people were making fun of Dylan, and
it's so
they've
funny.
always been very nice to me, very
You
nice to
talked to
me.
Dylan?
Yeah, Dylan and I used to be
Wow.
mutuals until she unfollowed me
Do
after
do you
the
blame her?
whole right scandal, and I kind of took her shtick of like it's being on the right. So
Oh
she
yeah,
doesn't follow me
you did do
anymore.
that.
But
I forgot. Yeah, you did do that. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was
yeah.
just
Oh no,
Continue.
it's
Sorry.
okay. But we had DM'd before, and we had like some. She asked me to partake in like some video things she was making at one point, and I told her I would, and then I just was lazy, and I never ended up sending her the clip. But we
Wow.
had talked, and I thought we were friendly. And then I kind of went in on Blair, and I pretty much told her. Well, we just said a lot of really mean things to each other that kind of just were ridiculous and
When did you guys?
unwarranted. But
When was that? Was this somewhat
we
recent?
this was about like maybe let's see, I kind of started this whole journey in April when I went on the right. This was probably like 3 months before that. So maybe like around January or February.
So you and
Um
Blair beefed when about you and Blair beefed 3 months ago?
Maybe like 4 months ago, 3 or 4 months
Oh.
ago about Dylan Mulvaney. And we were
Oh.
just DMing each. It was all private. It was private direct messaging on Instagram.
Oh, okay. Then I won't be.
But
I won't ask too many specific questions. Okay.
yeah, and we pretty much just said a lot of mean things, and then eventually, when April came around, I started, kind of doing my quote unquote grift, and Blair, who had me blocked on Instagram, didn't have me blocked on Twitter, and I publicly apologized to her on Twitter, which I still stand by because
Was the
I
beef
shouldn't have
public?
called her the things I called her.
Was the beef public?
Um, no, the beef. Well, I mean,
Oh,
the tweet and the apology was public, but all the beef was like behind the scenes.
gotcha.
I definitely made
Okay.
videos subtly hinting that her and I like had beef, but I definitely didn't make it like too public.
Wow. That's interesting because I was going to ask
But I
you.
don't know how she feels about me now. Like I went from apologizing to her to now like going back on everything I said about being on the right. So I haven't even looked to see if she still follows me on Twitter because I just don't even want to know the answer.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to make me sad if she unfollowed me. But
Well, I think that you're close to a conversation with Blair White. You know, you're certainly influential and popular, so I think that it's possible that she would talk to you. She has her own little podcast thing. I don't know if it's like super available on YouTube. It's more of like a private thing that she posts clips of. I think I'm not 100% educated. But it's funny because I was going to ask you specifically about Blair White and Dylan Mulvaney at some point. Not yet, but now that we're talking about it, I am curious. So, what is your take on Dylan? Because I know it seems like your take on Blair is that you see her as somewhat, to some extent, as like a positive, influential figure, and almost is inspiration to say. Is that going too far to say that she was like an inspiration? Is she still that inspiring figure to you, or?
I think she's very funny and I admire her as a content creator. Maybe not for specifically, I may not agree with all the things she's saying, but I do respect her hustle and I do like her. I really do like her as a person outside of politics. And from what I've seen on the internet, I think she's very funny and nice.
Do you think she's
Dylan, on the other
genuine?
hand, I think is a nice person, but I don't really know them that well. I just know the quick little messages we've had, which I guess I could say the same with Blair, but like Blair and I think have talked a lot more than Dylan and I ever have. And Dylan, the videos, as much as I like them, and I think they're very good for like getting attention and for TikTok and getting views, they do seem very attention grabby.
Yeah.
And like they're kind of just making a mockery of like their transition. But at the same time, I who isn't making TikTok videos that are attention grabby and like trying to garner millions of views? Like that's kind of the whole point. So I don't I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on Dylan Mulvaney because I really don't know the person.
Okay. When it comes to Blair, do you think that she's genuine in the way that she expresses herself? Is that did I
Um,
stump you with that question?
I don't know if a lot of people on the far right or the far left are genuine with everything they say. I think a lot of people, when you're picking a side in politics,
Mhm.
you have to eventually start saying things that you may not 100% agree with.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a Blair problem specifically. I think that's an everybody problem, which is why I kind of have stopped trying to label myself with a party because I've realized that's
Yeah.
kind of what happens when you do that and you're a political commentator on the internet.
Yeah, she's a victim of the system is what it comes down to. Cuz
Right.
I don't know, but for you cuz you're also trans and you're going through like a political almost identity crisis. And I kind of went through a similar thing when I hit a certain point where you get to a point where you feel like you can't be yourself anymore. And so I was wondering if you'd have more insight because some people say she's grifting. I don't know because I don't want to assume instantly that everybody's just lying and trying to get money. I know that we want to all get paid, right? We all do want to do that. But you can get paid without like grifting necessarily. So I was just wondering if like there's some kind of life experience where like you look at her and go like there's something about her that I feel is inauthentic. And it sounds like you've said yes to an extent. A
Well,
modest
I don't
yes.
know if sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, go ahead.
I don't know if I would call her a grifter because she's been like this, to my knowledge, since day one. Like this has always been her beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's necessarily that she's inauthentic. I just think that the people on the far right that are probably saying to Blair the same things they were saying to me that, oh, you're not a trans woman, you're a trans identified male. Do I think in any life Blair is publicly calling herself a trans identified male? Absolutely not.
Does she call herself
Like,
that on her content?
I don't know. I don't really watch her content as much as I used to when I was younger. But from what I've gotten from the people that were on the right that were replying to me, who presumably are the same people that follow her and have respect for her,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want me to even be called a trans woman. They didn't want me to use the woman's bathroom. I know Blair has made a video talking about that she thinks she has a right to use the woman's bathroom. Keep in mind, she's pre-op. She hasn't had the surgery and she thinks she's allowed to use the woman's bathroom. Those people are not going to agree with that ever. So to me, it's either Blair pretends to agree with them or she stays silent on certain topics.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think I saw a little snippet of her having a conversation with two very far right-wing conservatives who were just like, your existence is bad for the right. Like, if you really supported the right, you would detransition immediately and talk about how much of a mistake it was, which sounds like a very harmful, hurtful thing to hear from somebody that's supposed to be on your side. But then that was going to be another little question is, do you think that overall, even if there are areas of Blair that may not necessarily be genuine, do you think that she's an overall good force for trans people? Because some people will say that like her way that she talks about Dylan Mulvaney, she seems to assert that Dylan is not a woman. And I think that that's harmful because to me, Dylan is just a cringe theater nerd that happens to be trans. That's
right.
The performative nature of Dylan is just because she's an annoying theater person. And I know a lot of annoying theater people. They just act that way. And then she also happens to be trans. So she's doing like her thing like, oh, day one, day two, whatever. But that's not because she's trans. That's because it's silly, fun theater bullshit. And so Blair seems to see that as like a grift and how she's not really a woman and whatnot. And I think that's very harmful and toxic. But then on the other hand, she's simply a trans woman that exists in a conservative space. And like we said before, we were talking about how like you knew some people that were non-binary and you're like all of a sudden it made you kind of think a little bit more positively, empathetically towards non-binary people. And so I wonder what you think about that. Do you think that Blair overall is a good force for trans people?
I think she sometimes has good takes on certain things, but I think she pushes it too far because she wants to appease conservatives. Like, I don't think it's fair and this is what I don't understand about conservatives, is they'll judge people like Dylan Mulvaney who are very like new to their transition and clearly don't pass as well yet.
Yeah.
And then they'll judge them, even though if you look up pictures of Blair when she was 18 years old at the beginning of her transition, she looked probably just as, I mean, for lack of a better word, masculine as Dylan Mulvaney did at a time. So I don't know. To me, it just feels like they only want to accept you when you look a certain way. And I think she's aware of that. because
Okay.
I would be lying if I said I wasn't slightly aware of that as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and that's just how it works on the right. Like you as a trans person can be accepted by them if you look a certain way, and it's just the sad truth. Um, so yeah, I think she's very aware of that, and she uses that to her advantage, and she does prey on people like Dylan that are early in their
Yeah.
transition that don't look exactly the way she thinks they should look. I can't tell if it's a grift or if she genuinely has just gotten so far into her transition, because this happens where you almost forget where you were before.
Yeah.
Like I find myself, I used to judge people, you know, if they were like early in their transition, and like you really start to forget like where you came from, and it it's tough because especially after having the surgery, like I genuinely just I've like blacked out my life from before. I
Yeah.
just feel like I've always been like this. So I sometimes I catch myself just thinking half the time like I'm a biological woman, like I don't even think I'm trans.
That makes sense to me. Because like I think that just the existence of Blair being conservative trans woman, it makes a lot of people go like, oh, maybe trans people aren't so bad in the conservative space. But then, like you're saying, it seems like some of her focus seems to be propping herself up as trans by stepping on other people who may not be as passable or might be just kind of cringy. Dylan is a little cringy to me, but like whatever. God bless him. Them, not her, him, like her. God, sorry, I said but I didn't mean like
It's okay.
I got to be careful about that stuff, okay? Because that's you're one misgender away from getting canceled.
I hear you.
No, but that seems to be that's interesting when you talked about the gatekeeping a little bit when like the old group chat you had, and then maybe Blair is experiencing that genuinely. Maybe she does. Do you think that she almost? It's a little bit of a harsh question. Do you think that Blair almost hates who she was before transition, and she like applies that to other trans people who aren't as passable?
Maybe that's a good theory. I could see that. I mean, I think every trans person probably hates who they were before transition.
Yeah, which makes a little
Like,
more sense. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would have hated on myself if I was like watching my videos of myself from like 3 or 4 years ago, being like, you can say what you want, but like, I'm still hot though. Like, I literally would be like, this is the most annoying person ever. But that's like the name of the game, though, you know, on social media. Like, the most annoying person gets the most clout.
It is true sometimes. Yeah, very annoying people will get clicks. It is actually wild. It's interesting
Yeah.
how you could tell. You know, you could just sometimes you can act like a crazy person and get some good views. But okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that you knew Blair and Dylan in some capacity. Do you want to collab with either of them or both? Well, I think you'd have to choose at this point because everything's so fucking crazy on the internet now.
I would. It's tough because like I would want to do a collab with Blair just because I would die to like meet Blair. Like I would fangirl out a little bit, but like I don't think we'd make a good video just because I think our politics are a little different and I don't think we agree on everything.
You'd make a good like
And I
conversation video. I think with her would be very good. Like not maybe not like her normal content, but I think that would be pretty good.
maybe yeah something like that. But I definitely think I would butt heads with her a little bit because I don't, like you said, the thing about Dylan Mulvaney and making fun of their appearance and any person, trans person that's early on in their transition, I just don't think that stuff's okay.
Mhm.
Um, I'd be honestly curious to like know who she is like in real life behind the scenes. Like I would love to
Yeah.
just see the reality of that. I think I would like to hang out with Blair more than I would like to make a video with her. And I think I
Well,
would love to make a video with Dylan more than I would like to
that
actually hang out with
you know
Dylan.
what? I think I would agree with that. That makes perfect sense. I had a friend, his name was Muscle Pilled, and he went and there was apparently a group creator thing where they all got together in Texas and they just shot guns and Blair was there and she was shooting like a golden AK-47 or something like that. It was fucking wild. Definitely
Of
very
course she was.
yeah, very flashy, very flashy. But hey, good for good for her.